Dancing Queen Scene 3. Home at last. I parked the car in the open carport, feeling completely exhausted. It had been a long day at the clinic again. I had to laugh. Most people would call me a shrink, but the only person who really seemed to be shrinking was I. I sure loved being a psychologist, to help people out of their worries, but I was working a lot harder than most people imagined. Generally, I had to deal with two groups of patients, the younger ones, i.e., teenagers, and people on the other side of their mid-50s. Of course, that doesn't mean people in between don't have problems, it only means they learned to live with a lie, at least they believed they could live with it. Common for both groups was that whenever they said anything, they did not mean it that way. So, in a way, it was easy enough to be a shrink, just listen to your patients, turn everything around and you'll be the miracle doctor. It was silent in the house. I put my key into the lock and opened the door. I just felt like lying down on a couch, closing my eyes to the world and dream my own dreams. That's when reality struck. I dropped my purse to the ground. Claudia. My daughter was standing there at the stairs, clad in her pretty Gardetan's uniform, with the short skirt and the funny hat on her head. Everything seemed to be pretty normal, except for that big red ball which apparently was strapped tightly in her mouth. The poor girl tried to get away from where she was standing, but her hands seemed to be bound to the banister. She obviously could not free herself. Claudia. What the hell happened to you? Who has done this? Are you hurt? Are you okay? She did not answer. Of course, I thought, how could she answer me with that ball gag in her mouth? I had to free her. I must admit, I was in shock. This was very unusual. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Or had it? Some years ago, when Dan had been playing Indians with Claudia, he had strapped her to a pole and left her behind for an hour or so. Well, kids. But this was different. Dangerous. Getting over to her, I noticed something was completely weird. But what? I tried to look behind the thick layer of makeup. Was that really my daughter? Something about it did not fit. The proportions. Claudia wasn't that thin. Maybe it was one of the other girls in her dancing group. First, I wanted to free her hands. Maybe she could take the gag out herself. Then I noticed the handcuffs. What on earth? Who had the keys? I saw that the poor girl's wrists were already marked by the cuffs. I saw her hands. Oh no. I knew these hands. Oh God. Please, no. My mind wanted to give up. I did not like this game. I knew whose hands I was looking at. But I still asked myself if I was dreaming or not. This was not my daughter, all right. This was my son. But it just couldn't be. Dan was thicker. And he was a boy. He wouldn't be wearing girls' clothes, would he? No, not my little boy. My hands went to his waist, oh my. I recognized the touch of my corset right away. My mouth went all dry. My heart started hammering. Somebody had put him into my corset, and into his sister's dancing uniform. And gagged him. And cuffed him to the banister. All of a sudden I felt all the blood draining from my head. I had to sit down on a chair, maybe drink some water, maybe even change into some other clothes or even take a shower. Dan wouldn't run away. I could solve this later. I returned about half an hour later. He was still there, as I had left him. No, not I, someone else had left him like that. I had to find out who. Maybe I should take that nasty rubber ball out of his mouth. With trembling fingers I unfastened the straps and pulled the ball gag out. He moaned, working his jaw up and down. Thanks, he murmured. The situation was so strange, I had to reply with, "You are welcome," knowing it was nonsense to say so. Who did this to you? The girls did. The girls? Claudia and her friends from the dancing group. Yes. But what happened? Why are you wearing this? You must be completely ashamed of yourself. He blushed. Claudia strained her ankle this afternoon. So they needed a stand-in for their public dance in 2 weeks' time. But what on earth has this to do with you? You are not supposed to be this stand-in, are you? I noticed I was very much afraid to hear his answer. If he said yes now, it would mean a lot of trouble. No way, Mom. Definitely no. And this? I pointed to the uniform he was wearing. His face became crimson red. Just a joke, Mom. The girls simply dared me. And I did not want to be a wimp. That's all. Can you get me out of this now? I knew from business that whenever someone says, "that's all," there's more behind it. No, I can't. Do you know where the keys are? He told me to go upstairs and ask Claudia. She would be in her room. I did so, went upstairs, knocked rapidly on her door and entered right away, pretty much pissed off. You better get those keys and get your brother loose and let him out of your uniform. She remained sitting on her sofa. Hi, Mom. I'm sorry, I can't. I strained my ankle this morning and it hurts like hell. And you had better look at some nice pictures before you ask any more questions. She turned her notebook around, thus making it possible for me to see something I did not want to see. It was Christ. That was my son. This very moment the truth was all clear to me. Something had to be done, something had to be done right away. I did not want my boy to be unhappy the rest of his life. I had to calm down. You got the keys? Then come with me. We went downstairs again. Danny was still standing cuffed to the banister, trying to hide his face from view. But when he saw Claudia was with me, he started right away, "You bitch. Wait till I get at you. Just let me get out of these clothes now. Calm down. You just got what you asked for. Yeah, and now I'm asking to change." Change into what? I asked him, knowing I had to be careful whenever somebody talks about change. Anything, Mom. As long as it is decent. Claudia. You heard your brother. Get him something to change into. What shall I get for him, Mom? My daughter asked back. Anything, you heard what he said. As long as it is decent. And you, I turned to my son, I thought I was getting real good at these expressions. It's completely all right. Don't worry, things will straighten out soon. Meanwhile, Claudia had disappeared into her room. I could hear her rummage around for a while, then she returned with something bright red over her arm. I had to smile when I saw what she brought. But now I had to make sure the whole situation wasn't getting out of control. That's a nice idea. She will look very pretty wearing your dirndl. Wait, I'll help you. Danny looked nervously around him. She? Who are you talking about? Who's gonna wear that dreadful dress? Claudia hates it, if I remember right. Laughing, Claudia went over to him. Yes, my little sister. You are absolutely right. I hate it. So since you are so fond of my clothes, I'll let you have it. His face went all grey. He bit his lips but didn't say anything. Then, with a cracking voice, he said no, but I was quite sure that he meant yes. Always the opposite, as usual. We freed him from the cuffs, helped him out of his Gardatan's uniform with the short skirt and fluffy petticoat underneath. Only now I saw what he had on his penis. Oh my God! What's this? Claudia explained it to me. And she said she did not have the key to the thing, but that her friend Maria had the key, at least she thought so. As it turned out, nobody had thought about any keys when they had put the chastity cage on his penis. Well, then you better phone your friend and ask her to come over with the key, I told her. We slipped the white blouse over his head, then let him step into the dress and pulled it over his hips. Claudia tried to close the long zipper at the bodice, but had problems. I cannot zip him up. He's still too thick for the dandle. Just tug her in a little more. I can see her corset isn't fully closed yet. No, he cried. Please don't lace me any tighter. Yes, he meant please lace me tighter. Claudia was a good sport. Of course. What do you think, Daniela? Do you want me to lace your corset tighter, so you can fit into your lovely dandle dress? No, please. I can't stand it. I can hardly breathe as it is. Yes, he meant, lace me tighter till I faint. And a painful grunt appeared. Claudia had begun her task and certainly did not spare him. I could easily see his waist getting smaller and smaller. When finally it looked like an hourglass, she tied the laces off and, giving the dandle a new try, smiled. There you go, Daniela. Oh, you look just so lovely to me. You should always wear your pretty dandle, I think. Next she tied the white apron around his waist, helped him into a pair of matching high-heeled shoes, and then turned him around to be looked at. My God! What do you think, Mom? Isn't she a natural beauty? Just look at her waist and her boobs. Oh no, look what she's trying to do. She seems to be excited about her dress. I saw where Dan's hand went. He obviously tried to touch his penis, and I had no doubt what for. No, no, Claudia told him, taking his hand away. Stop playing with that. Good we put that chastity belt on you. Maybe I'd better ask Maria for the key, don't you think so? With that, she took her mobile phone and waited for her friend to answer the call. Hi Maria, yes, very funny. No, she's wearing my most horrible dress. You remember my dandle dress, don't you? Oh, how I hated it. Yes, yes, of course we want the key. What? You say what? Who's got it? Your sister? And she is where? Wow. She made silent thumbs down into my direction. Obviously the key to Dan's chastity device was with Maria's sister. Aha. Yes, she'll have to live with it, I guess. She can of course always look at the pictures I took with my mobile phone. Okay, see you then. Claudia smiled. Her sister's got the key. And she's off to college and won't be home for the next 2 weeks. Poor Daniela. I must say, I did not really know what to do about the whole situation. It was so weird. And hearing Claudia call her brother, Daniela, made it even weirder. I simply had to ask the girl's father about it. The girl's father? What was I thinking? I had only one girl. And one boy. Or did I? In front of me I clearly saw 2 girls. No. My husband would probably know what to do about it. By the way, he is a surgeon. He'd be home late today, he said. MOM. Claudia's yell brought me out of my thoughts. She's trying to take her dandle off. You know, what you always did to me whenever I tried to take it off. Of course I knew. Claudia always hated to wear her dandle and had often tried simply to change into something more practical. Which of course I always kept her from by very simple means. I nodded in her direction. Claudia smiled and quickly pulled the boy's arms behind his back, tying them together with the soft band of his white apron. That would eliminate his efforts. Well, we sure had to think about it now. Phil, my husband, was as shocked as I had been. He returned home about 8 p.m., when Dan was still in his dress. For some time now he had been silent, after urging me all the time to let him go. He said he felt sorry about what had been done. Of course he did not mean it. His sister had put the red ball gag around his neck, just in case, as she said. Like this, he just sat down in a corner, waiting for his father to come home. It was quite a sight. He was sitting bolt upright, silently moaning due to his very tight corset. Claudia had combed his long hair in a very girlish style, and since his face always had been very soft and somewhat feminine, he made the perfect girl. His sister couldn't keep from mocking him. "Oh sis, I'm so happy you can fit into my dirndl. It's such a pretty dress. Wait, let me take some more pictures of you." And before he had a chance to hide away from her, she took a couple of new pictures with her mobile phone. "And you think that would be the best way to treat him, as you said?" Phil asked me. "Well, yes, no, I'm not at all sure. I don't think he can be treated." "What do you mean?" "You don't mean that my son?" He was slightly shocked. "Your son?" "Our son. Yes, I think we've lost him." It was hard to accept. "And you really think, you really want him to stay dressed like that for the next 2 weeks, participate in Claudia's Gardatans group, and even go public with the girls?" "Our son?" I had a lump in my throat. "Yes, I think it's the only way. We must be certain." "But what about school? We cannot keep him prisoner like that for 2 weeks. We've got work to do. Claudia will keep an eye on him. You just said she will have to stay at home with her ankle anyway. She'll be the perfect jailer." I wanted to laugh at my joke, but my heart felt like ice. Phil was breathing hard. "Good to know, we can do something about it, unlike other parents." "Okay, you'll tell him. Tell him he has to go through with it until the dancing competition is over. Then we'll decide." I told him he would have to stay as a girl for the next 2 weeks, stay at home, together with his sister. And that he was supposed to train every day with the girls. Wearing that uniform again, with the petticoat, he interrupted me. Claudia helped me out. "No, silly, we don't usually train with our uniforms. You'll get one of my long-sleeved leotards, you'll look pretty cool in it." I saw him gulping. And I sensed a great amount of emotions flooding from his side. In my opinion, he was truly smitten by the idea. No doubt, he had a hard time in front of him. Whether it would be nice or not was completely up to to Daniela.